My name is Zac Hill. I'm the plant records specialist and taxonomist here at Juniper Level Botanical Garden. We're going to talk about fall bulbs today, and we're actually going to get a little bit of a behind the scenes walk through some of our trial beds, just because that's where a lot of fall bulbs are close together that we can actually see a lot in a little bit of time. So we're going to walk this way. So this is Colchicum tenorei. This is a fall blooming crocus relative from the Mediterranean. It will have about a foot and a half tall, big green leaves once it's finished blooming over winter, and it goes completely dormant in the summer and then pops up regularly at about this time during the year.
How long does it flower?
It flowers about a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's a very large bulb, so it's one that you don't see for sale too often through like Brent and Becky's and things like that. But once they're established, they're really long-lived and form really large clumps. So it's a good Mediterranean bulb for the fall for us here in central North Carolina. You would plant it probably sometime in the summer or early spring. It's not going to root out until later in the year when it starts to send up leaves. But they're not the easiest thing to source, unfortunately. And they're really massive. I know when Tony went to Crete to look for things like this, they were enormous bulbs and really hard to, and deep. So we also have a few alliums, some ornamental onions that are blooming at this time of year. That were at the tail end of things. This is one of the highest selling onions we've ever had. This is Allium Millennium. It's been a top seller for years. So, all right, we're gonna go this way. And for those of you joining in later, I'm Zac Hill. I'm the plant records specialist here at Juniper Level. So we're going to go behind the scenes a little bit now. So these are our trial beds. We use these for production purposes as well as to maintain some of our collections here at Juniper Level. We have about 750 varieties of Lycoris, which are these surprise lilies that you see here. Most of these blooming now. This is an albiflora. We have Lycoris albiflora buttermint. This is a good fall blooming bulb. It's a hybrid between Lycoris radiata, which is this red, and this is hybridized with Chinensis, I believe. And Straminia is the opposite. It's a radiata crossed with aurea. So some come up with leaves in the fall and some come up with leaves in the spring. So it's backwards from what you would think. They're blooming in the summer and then they put out the leaves during the colder parts of the year. This is Lycoris radiata. This is Adams August. It's one that came from a guy in California. It's a pretty reliable bloomer for us here, and it's a fall emerging leaves species. It's one of the parents of these white guys. Let's see, and we'll go. Deer generally don't touch them. And I don't think we've had any issues with voles with these as well. They're not palatable to deer. They're slightly toxic. Most members of the Amaryllis family, which these are not good for deer to be, not good to eat. So, and they will actually start out a creamy white color and fade to a orangey pink sometimes. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Rice lilies have to be planted, Lycoris have to be planted.
Most of them want to be about, well, it depends. Lycoris straminia, no. Squamigera, the big pink one. The further south you are, the shallower they want to be. I've got a friend in Alabama who grows them right on the soil surface because it doesn't get the cold they want in the winter. So the higher the bulb, the more the bulb is exposed to cold. So they actually bloom better for him in a much warmer zone than we are by being on the surface. Now, if you're further north, you're going to want to go deeper just to prevent them from freezing solid in the winter. So one you wouldn't think of blooming now, this is one of the autumn snowdrops. This is from the Mediterranean part of Europe. This is Asus Autumnalis. It used to be Lycoris Autumnalis, but it's a little tiny white flower, and it comes up in late August and blooms for about a month and a half. So I'll pass this around and you guys look at these. It's a tiny little bulb, but it's reliably perennial for us here. It's one we'd like to eventually offer, and it looks like we're getting fairly close.
So tiny little bulb meaning how many bulbs is probably?
Oh gosh, there's probably 150, 200 bulbs in that patch. So, and then we have an iris relative that's a bulb. This is Cypella herbertii Castillo. It's from South America. It's got these weird goblet-shaped flowers. One of the common names is goblet flower. Surprisingly hardy for something that's from Argentina and southern Brazil. They come in yellow and blue are the hardy ones that we can grow here. We've offered this on occasion, but it's one that blooms from probably July to about frost for us. So it's a good late season bulb with these strappy green, almost palm-like leaves. And it's just, it will seed around a little bit, but it's a great bulb for the fall. And while not technically a bulb, it's sold as a bulb. These are tuberosas. They're agave relatives, and they are really, really fragrant, or can be really fragrant. It's sold as a cut flower. It's hardy to about zone 7, but we have it in yellow and pink and double pink. We've sold a variegated one in the past as well. It's now listed as a member of the genus Agave due to genetics. It's surprising. It goes completely dormant. The leaves don't have any teeth, but it's an agave, and that's a hard pill to swallow for those of us that deal with agaves. So across the way, 4 beds over, is Lycoris radiata Benikujiku. It's a fully double spider lily, and we'll head over there. It's one we've sold in the past. It used to be called Fireworks, but the cultivar is actually a Japanese cultivar, and we have to use its original cultivar name, which is Benikujiku. And here's another albiflora like the first one we saw over there. This is Moonbeam. This is a Japanese cultivar we bought in. And it's one of these fall emerging flowers. And here's another cultivar of the same hybrid species. This is Morrison's Pink. So they're not always white. They can be this streaky orangey pink color. One of the other things we do here is we make intergeneric crosses with bulbs. So we've got Hippeastrelia here, which is a hybrid between Florist Amaryllis Hippeastrum and Sperkelia, which are blooming up ahead, which is a weird Mexican rain lily relative, and we make crosses between them, and then we end up with streaky things and interesting bulbs. So this is the Sperkelia. It's got 3 big petals up top, and then 3 clustered at the bottom, and that's one of the parents of like this red hybrid here. So this is surprisingly hardy for something from Mexico. And we sell a couple of these Aztec lilies, and they're related to the rain lilies over here as well, the Zephyranthes that we have lots in bloom right now, just all sorts of clones and different colors, basically any color you would ever want to have.
On the rain lilies, how much, if in a garden that doesn't have a controlled irrigation, how many days of rain a week would you need, or how wet is it?
So they bloom after rains. It doesn't matter if you're irrigating, they're not going to bloom. It's an atmospheric change that they react to.
But in the woods behind my house, they grow in a really swampy area.
Okay, so that's Zephyranthes adamasco. That's the native one, and it's only a spring bloomer.
But I'm thinking of water requirement.
Oh, that one, you can grow those in average garden soil as well.
Okay.
They do grow in absolute muck in the wild,
That's where I've seen
but you can grow them in average garden soil. Most of these originate out of northern South America and Central America into Mexico and South Texas. So there's some yellow species in South Texas and a few white species, the Couperia types with long floral tubes. And then the big white cluster there, that's a Candida, which is from Brazil. And then the creamy white one there is a hybrid with Candida and one of the yellow ones. So you get there, the Filipinos and Malaysian, there's been several breeders in the Philippines and Malaysia that have introduced a lot of these cultivars we have. Fijir, Marta was a big breeder of these things back in the early 2000s, late 90s.
Which of these would you think would grow well for novice gardeners?
Oh, they're all super easy. They're bulletproof, really. They're good. They set seed. They seed around, and they'll go into full bloom 4 or 5 days after a rain. Generally, after a big rain event, we'll get this whole thing will be just bands of color. So it's a great thing. And one of the other great fall bulbs is this Rhodophylla. It's a plant from southern Brazil and Argentina that's related to Zephyranthes as well. This one is an old pass-along clone from central Texas. We named Hill Country Red. It grows all over Austin and San Antonio, and it comes up in people's yards, and it was passed along through settlers. And it's on its way out of blooming, but it, you know, August into September, and this plant just absolutely sets this bed on fire with the bright red flowers. So Zephyranthes are another big collection of ours. So I mean, these are all the rain lilies we were talking about earlier, and it's just they're stunning in full bloom. So this is that fully double Lycoris radiata. It's got no floral parts other. They were all turned into petaloids. So it was fireworks. It's now Bini Kujaku. And it sometimes has a little bit of pollen on some of the edges of these petals, but I don't see any on this cluster here. But this is possibly if it had pollen, and I've only rarely seen pollen on this super duper messed up mutant. So, but this is a cultivar we've sold and offered for a number of years. So, all right. Huh? Yeah, no, we have. This is over on the northeast side of the 49 garden, the part shade garden, and with the purple-leaved sweet shrub, Calicanthus over there, and with like Rudbeckia and stuff. So it all blooms together and it's a really interesting combination. So, any other questions, guys?
This right here?
That's a rosea. Most of our roseas are done for the season.
That's not this here?
No,
Okay.
no, that's a relation. It's half of this plant is that. So,
Thank you.
yes, thank you. I hope you learned a few things, and I didn't bore you with behind the scenes.